Hi, my name is Donn Felker. I'm an independent consultant, and in this Dimecast, we're going to take a quick introduction into the Hello World Windows Phone 7 series development environment with Visual Studio 2010 Express and the Windows Phone 7 series emulator. The first thing that we're going to need to do is open up our Internet Explorer or your favorite browser and browse to developer.windowsphone.com. This is the developer portal for the new Windows Phone 7 series. From here, we'll go to the right hand side and select download the tools today. We need to select the tools, and again to the right hand side, click again, download the developer tools. Once we click this, we'll be taken to Microsoft's Download Center. We can click download files below or just scroll below, and then what we'll need to do is download the vmboot vmweb.exe, which is 3.2 MB. We'll then save this or run this, and what we can do is once we run this, it will need to install Visual Studio 2010 Express, and it will install XNA Game Development Studio, some Silverlight components, and the emulator itself. I have already done this, and I don't want you to have to wait for this. This entire process might take you 30 minutes if you have a high-speed internet connection, so I'm just going to cancel out of this, but that's how you can get the files and get going up and running. So let's go ahead and start up Visual Studio. And you can see here we have Visual Studio 2010 Express for Windows Phone. I would also like to note that I started with a fresh machine. I did not have Visual Studio on this machine at all, and I am currently using a boot to VHD option. If you're not sure what boot to VHD is, please Google boot to VHD, and you should find a link provided by Scott Hansman on how to boot into a virtual hard drive. So the first thing that we're going to do is, now that we're inside of Visual Studio 2010 Express for Windows Phone, we're just going to go to File, New Project. This will bring up the new project wizard for the Windows Phone. We have a couple different options. We can do a Windows Phone application, we can do a list application, which is for creating a Windows Phone using list and navigation controls, or we can just create a Windows Phone class library. We're just going to use the top one, which is a Windows Phone application, kind of creating our basic Hello World type of application. We'll provide an example location here. Call it example. Let's call this Dimecast. .example, and then we're going to call this Hello WP7 for Windows Phone 7. Click OK. This will create the project and the solution at the given location that we have provided. It's still rendering here, and then now at this point in time we are going to be presented with some XAML as well as the emulator to the left hand side here. The middle part of the screen, we have the XAML for the phone navigation. On the left hand side we'll see the Windows Phone Designer service, and we have my application page title. This information is represented inside of this grid here, inside these two text blocks. So we're going to say Hello WP7 and say our first WP7 app. Actually, just change this to WP7 app. First WP7 app, so we can see it on the screen itself. We hit save. We're pretty much at this point in time ready to fire up the app. So what we can do is we can hit debug. We can start debugging or start without debugging. I'm going to choose start without debugging because I don't have anything I need to debug at this point in time. I just want to be able to start a new application, make a couple changes, and see what it looks like. Upon pressing this, Visual Studio will build the app, and then it'll also start up the emulator as we see here on the screen. The emulator, depending upon your processor, your memory, etc., could take a few moments to start up. Also note that the emulator, while the emulator is loading, we have a couple options here on the side. If we select the settings, we can choose a zoom level. This is a level in which it will show on the screen. Let's choose 66% so we can fit all of the emulator on the screen. So it shrunk down the emulator a little bit. Now I can drag it up. At this point in time, the emulator is still loading some information. My hard drive's spinning at this point in time, and we have different menus down here, start, etc. The app's now getting ready to start. Visual Studio will start the application for you, and right now it has started our first Hello WP7 app application. We've gone from Downloading the tools necessary from the developer.windowsphone.com site, installing them takes about 30 minutes overall. File new, changed a couple of properties within the XAML, and started up the application. We've also edited the size of the emulator, which we can change from 66%, we can go to 33%, etc. This is useful because perhaps if you have a smaller resolution screen and you can't fit the emulator in your screen, you can change it to actually fit. If you want to play around with the emulator, you can click back. It'll take you back to the home page. At this point in time, there's only the Internet Explorer which is installed. You can click that and it will load Internet Explorer, and you can select up top to play with it, and you can say go to google.com on the Windows Phone, and now you're in google.com on the emulator, which is using my local bridge networking, etc. We can also take this phone and exit back out. We can go to the start menu and we can hit back, and we will see all the different apps we have here. We have Hello WP7. We'll select that one. It will start our app again. A couple different options here are to rotate the phone right, so we can now get a different perspective for the orientation. Rotate it again, and rotate it again if we'd like to return back to normal, minimize, close, etc. Again, this is our first introduction to the Windows Phone 7 series development. I hope you enjoy it.